In the beginning, he walks away thinking he's won. He convinces himself that he's in control, that this was the right decision, that life will go on as if nothing ever happened. He tells himself that he doesn't need you, that you were just a phase, that he'll replace you, upgrade, move on to something better. He wears his confidence like armor, showing the world that he's unfazed, unaffected. Maybe he even posts about it, making sure you see how great he's doing, how much fun he's having, how little your absence has changed his life. And at first, he believes it. He's out with friends, laughing, living in the moment. The thrill of distractions keeps him from facing reality. He fills his time with meaningless interactions, late nights, loud music, anything that drowns out the silence that would force him to think. He surrounds himself with people who hype him up, telling him he made the right choice, that he's better off. The world seems exciting, and he embraces the idea that he's free, free from commitment, free from responsibility, free from the depth of emotion that came with you. But what he doesn't realize is that this so-called freedom is temporary. He's on borrowed time, distracting himself from a truth that hasn't fully hit him yet. Because the thing about distractions is that they don't last forever. The nights out, the temporary highs, the people who come and go, they're nothing but a cover-up. And at some point, when the noise dies down, when he's alone in his room, when the messages stop coming, he'll feel it. At first, it's just a whisper, a quiet thought that creeps in when he least expects it. He'll see something that reminds him of you, a song, a scent, a place you used to go together. And for a second, his mind will wander back to what used to be, but he'll shake it off, push it away, tell himself it doesn't matter. He's got everything under control. He's not weak. He won't let himself miss you. But time has a way of breaking down even the strongest illusions. The more he tries to act like he doesn't care, the more reality starts creeping in. He notices the small things first, the absence of your messages, the lack of your voice, the realization that no one else truly understands him the way you did. He may have thought he was ready to let go, but he didn't consider what life would actually feel like without you in it. Days turn into weeks, and suddenly the distractions don't work the same way anymore. The people he thought would replace you only make him realize what he lost. The moments that once felt exciting now feel empty. He wakes up in the morning and checks his phone out of habit, expecting a message from you only to be met with silence. He scrolls through old photos, replays old conversations, trying to convince himself that he doesn't care, but the truth is becoming harder to ignore. And then it happens. He starts comparing. Every new person, every new interaction, every fleeting moment reminds him of what he had with you. And no matter how hard he tries, no one measures up, because what you gave him wasn't just surface level attention. It wasn't just temporary excitement. You gave him something real. You challenged him, supported him, understood him in ways he never even realized mattered. And now, without you, there's a void that no one else can fill. He thought he was winning. He thought he was untouchable, but now time is working against him. The longer he goes without you, the more it starts to hurt. And the worst part, he'll never admit it. He'll keep pretending, keep putting on a show, keep telling himself and everyone around him that he's fine. But deep inside, he knows the truth. He knows that he underestimated you, underestimated the impact you had on his life. And now, as he watches you move on, as he sees you becoming stronger, happier, more confident without him, the weight of his mistake becomes unbearable. And at that moment, he'll finally realize he didn't win, he lost. And it's a loss he'll have to live with for a very long time. At first, the silence doesn't bother him. In fact, he welcomes it. He sees it as proof that he's moved on, that he's in control, that this was the right decision. He tells himself that you'll probably reach out first, that you'll break down and check in, that your absence is only temporary. In his mind, you're still an option, still someone he could have if he wanted. So in the beginning, the silence feels like power, but time is a ruthless teacher. Days turn into weeks, and suddenly that silence starts to shift. What once felt like control now feels like emptiness. The messages that used to come in, the notifications that used to light up his phone, gone. The calls, the check-ins, the way you used to care about the little details of his life, all of it has disappeared. And for the first time, he starts to feel it. Not just the absence of your presence, but the absence of your energy, your attention, your love. At first, he brushes it off. He tells himself he's too busy to care, that life moves on, that this is just part of the process. He keeps himself distracted, filling his time with anything that can take his mind off the growing void. He surrounds himself with people, goes out more, pretends like nothing has changed. But deep down, something is different. The conversations he has now feel empty. The people around him don't bring the same comfort, and no matter how many things he does to fill the space, there's still something missing. Then the real weight of the silence starts to sink in. He finds himself checking his phone, not because he expects a message, but because he secretly hopes for one. He starts noticing the moments when he would have normally reached out to you, when something exciting happens, when he needs advice, when he just wants to talk. But you're not there. And the realization cuts deeper than he expected. He goes through old messages, rereads conversations, maybe even starts typing something out before stopping himself. He wants to break the silence, but his pride won't let him. He keeps telling himself that you'll reach out first, that you'll be the one to cave, but days pass and you don't. And that's when it truly starts to hit him. The silence isn't temporary, it's real. You're not waiting on him, you're not sitting there hoping he'll come back, you're moving on. And that's when panic sets in. He starts wondering if he made a mistake. He starts replaying everything in his head, what he said, what he did, the last conversation you had. He wonders if there's a way back, if there's still a chance. But the longer the silence stretches, the more he realizes that you're slipping further and further away. At night, when he's alone, when there's nothing left to distract him, the weight of your absence becomes unbearable. He thought he could replace you, thought he could move on without a second thought, but now the silence has become his biggest enemy. It follows him everywhere, a constant reminder that he lost someone who truly cared. And the worst part, he did this to himself. He let go of something real, thinking he wouldn't feel the loss, but now time is proving him wrong. The longer he goes without you, the more he realizes that no amount of distractions, no amount of pretending can change the truth. He misses you. And that silence, it's the loudest thing he's ever heard. At first, he convinces himself that he doesn't need you, that life without you is just another chapter, something he'll adjust to without a problem. He tells himself that walking away was the right choice, that this is just another phase, that soon he'll feel nothing at all. In his mind, he's already replaced you, already filled the space where you once were. Maybe he even acts like he's thriving, posting more, laughing louder, making sure the world sees that he's completely unbothered. But time doesn't work the way he expects it to. The longer he goes without you, the more he realizes that what he lost wasn't just a relationship, it was something deeper. It was comfort, it was understanding, it was the one person who truly saw him for who he was. And now, without you, that emptiness is something he can't ignore. At first it's small, a random thought in the middle of the day, a memory that creeps in when he least expects it, a song, a scent, a place, something that brings you back to him for just a second. But he shakes it off, tells himself it's nothing, that it doesn't mean anything. He's fine. He's in control. But then it happens again and again. And soon it's not just a passing thought, it's a feeling that lingers, something that stays with him even when he tries to push it away. He starts noticing the spaces where you used to be, the way no one checks in on him the way you did, the way the conversations he has now feel empty, surface level, lacking the depth you brought into his life. He starts comparing, without even realizing it, every new person, every new interaction to what he had with you. And no matter how hard he tries, nothing feels the same. He might not admit it to anyone, but he starts to feel the loss in ways he never expected. It's in the quiet moments when he has nothing to distract himself with. It's in the nights when he's lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, realizing that something is missing. It's in the realization that the people around him aren't you, that no one understands him the way you did. And that's when he starts to realize that maybe, just maybe, he made a mistake. The longer he goes without you, the heavier it becomes. He starts wondering what you're doing, if you still think about him, if you've already moved on. And that thought, it destroys him because in his mind, you were supposed to be the one who waited, the one who always cared no matter what, the one who would never truly leave. But now he's seen something he never thought he would. You're fine without him. And that's when it truly starts to hurt. Because the moment he realizes that you're no longer waiting, that you're no longer affected by his absence, is the moment he understands just how much he's lost. It's no longer about his pride, no longer about proving a point. It's about the fact that he let go of something real, and now there's no going back. And that's when the regret starts to eat away at him. Because now, no matter what he does, no matter how much time passes, he knows the truth. Losing you wasn't just a moment, it was a turning point. And now, it's too late. At first, he assumes that time is on his side. He believes that as the days pass, the feelings will fade, the memories will blur, and eventually he'll wake up without even thinking about you. He tells himself that distance is power, that the more time goes by, the less you will matter. He convinces himself that one day he'll look back at all of this and wonder why he ever cared in the first place. But the truth doesn't unfold the way he expects it to. Because time isn't his ally, it's his greatest enemy. As the days stretch into weeks, something starts to shift. Instead of forgetting, he remembers more. Instead of moving on, he feels the weight of what's missing even stronger. He thought time would make it easier, but every moment without you only magnifies the absence. The further he gets from you, the more he realizes just how much you meant to him. It starts small, little moments where he instinctively reaches for his phone, only to remember there's no message waiting for him. Places he used to visit with you now feel different, almost empty. The things that once made him laugh don't feel the same because you were the one who made those moments special. He starts to recognize the ways you showed up for him, the details you remembered, the way you made even the ordinary feel meaningful. And then there's the loneliness, the kind that doesn't come from being alone, but from realizing that the one person who truly understood him is no longer there. It creeps in at night when distractions fade and all he's left with are his own thoughts. It follows him through his days when he catches himself wanting to tell you something only to realize that door is closed. At first, he fights it. He buries himself in distractions, tries to convince himself that he's fine. But the more he avoids it, the stronger it becomes, because deep down, he knows the truth. He lost someone irreplaceable. And the worst part? It didn't have to be this way. He thought he could walk away without consequences, that you would always be there, waiting. But now, time is proving him wrong. The longer he goes without you, the more he realizes just how much he underestimated your value. And no matter what he does now, no matter how much he wishes he could turn back time, he can't change the truth. He let you go, and now he's the one who has to live with the pain of what he lost. At first, he thought he had all the time in the world. He believed that no matter what happened, you would always be there, always thinking about him, always holding on to the connection, always waiting in the background. He saw your patience, your love, your loyalty, and mistook it for something permanent. He never truly considered the possibility that one day you would stop waiting. But time is a ruthless teacher. The longer he goes without you, the more it forces him to see a reality he never prepared for. He starts to understand that you weren't just another person in his life. You were the one who genuinely cared. The one who stood by him when no one else did. The one who saw his flaws and still chose to stay. And now, for the first time, he realizes what life is like without that. At first, he might try to convince himself that he's fine. He might even put on a show, acting like he's happier, like he's moving forward, like your absence means nothing. He might distract himself with new people, new experiences, anything to avoid the truth. But time has a way of stripping away illusions. And the longer he tries to outrun what he's feeling, the harder it hits when reality finally catches up. Because as time moves forward, he starts to see the difference between temporary distractions and genuine connection. He starts to notice how the conversations he has now don't carry the same depth, how the people around him don't really understand him the way you did, how no matter how much he tries to replace you, no one quite fits the way you did. And then the doubt creeps in, the what ifs, the regrets. He starts to wonder, was he too quick to let go? Did he make a mistake? Could he have done things differently? And with every unanswered question, the weight of what he lost only grows heavier. The longer he goes without you, the more he sees how much of an impact you had on his life. The moments he once took for granted now stand out in his mind. The things you used to do, the way you checked in, the way you supported him, the way you made him feel seen and valued, now feel irreplaceable. And that's when he realizes something he never expected. You weren't the one who lost. He was. Because while he was busy convincing himself that he didn't need you, you were proving that you never needed him. While he was assuming that time would make you miss him, he didn't realize that time was making you stronger, more independent, more confident in a life without him. And when that truth finally sinks in, when he finally sees that you're not coming back, it won't just hurt. It will break him in a way he never saw coming. He thought time would heal everything, that the longer he went without you, the less it would hurt, the more distant the memories would become, and eventually you would be nothing more than a passing thought. He assumed that the emotions tied to you would fade, that his life would continue uninterrupted, that he would move forward without any real consequences. But time has a way of revealing the truth, and as the days stretch into weeks and the weeks into months, he begins to see something he never expected. Losing you wasn't just a moment. It was a slow, creeping realization that grows heavier with time. Instead of moving on, he starts to feel the weight of your absence in ways he never anticipated. At first, it's subtle, a passing thought here and there, a song that reminds him of you, a place that holds a memory. He brushes it off, thinking it's just a moment of nostalgia, nothing more. But then, those moments start piling up. He finds himself unconsciously checking his phone, expecting a message that never comes. He catches himself searching for you in crowded rooms, wondering if you're there, if you're thinking about him, if you miss him the way he now realizes he misses you. And then the regret starts creeping in. He begins replaying conversations in his head, remembering the things he said, the way he acted, the mistakes he made. He starts to wonder, what if he had done things differently? What if he had fought harder, appreciated you more, been the person you needed him to be? And the worst part? There are no answers. Just a growing sense of loss that no distraction can numb. Time, which he once thought would be his ally, is now working against him. Because the longer he goes without you, the more he sees what he lost. He realizes that while he was busy convincing himself that you were replaceable, you were proving that you never needed him to begin with. And now when he finally understands your worth, it's too late, because time hasn't just changed his feelings, it's changed you. The person he once knew, the one who was always there, always willing to give him another chance, no longer exists. You've grown, evolved, become stronger in ways he never imagined. You've learned to live without him. And when he finally reaches the point where he's ready to come back, he'll find nothing but silence. And that silence will be the loudest pain he's ever felt.